Hello, Happy New Year! I decided that I would once again make a language goal video for 2025 because the last couple of years haven't been great in terms of language learning, but I feel like 2025 is going to be a good year in terms of language learning, so I figured I'd talk a little bit about my goals because the past couple of years I haven't really been studying languages that much. I've just been had other things going on, but yeah, and the language learning that I've done has been quite passive. Like last year or the year before that, I did read quite a bit in German and in Swedish, which was nice. But I didn't do any sort of, didn't get out my textbooks much. I didn't study. But one thing that was really great last year is that I walked from my home in the east of Netherlands to Santiago de Compostela in northern Spain. It's a pilgrimage known as the Camino, and I started out in Netherlands, and then I walked through Germany for a couple of days, and then I walked through the Netherlands again for like a week or so, and then I crossed the French-speaking part of Belgium, and that took me about a week, I think, and then I crossed all of France, which still feels kind of crazy, but I think that took me around 7 weeks. So in total, I spent about 8 weeks in a French-speaking area, and after that, I continued through Spain. And I'm not entirely sure anymore how long it took me, but I think maybe 4 or 5 weeks I spent in Spain. So in total, I spent quite a lot of time last year in a country where a different language is spoken, so that was great for language immersion, I would say. Even I think I only spent like 4 or 5 days in Germany, it wasn't that many, but I do feel like it was good for my language learning. I spoke German quite a bit, and I learned some new words, and I actually had my first phone call in German, which was kind of terrifying, but it was fine. So I felt pretty proud of that. And in Spain, I found that a lot of people, at least along the trail that I was walking, spoke English quite well. So I didn't always need Spanish, but a few times the people didn't speak any English at all. And I did learn like a few simple phrases, and some words came back to me that I'd learned before. So I don't feel like I can say at this point that I really speak Spanish, but I could at least say easy phrases like when I arrived at a hostel, I could ask for a bed, or if I wanted to get some food, I could ask if they had anything vegan, things like that. Just simple phrases, and it was just kind of nice to use that in context. But the language that I've definitely practiced the most was French, because as I said, I spent like at least 8 weeks in a French speaking area, and I didn't encounter a lot of people who spoke English, so that was really good for practicing because I've never felt very confident about my French. But a lot of the time when you're kind of forced to speak a language, even if you feel a bit shy, it turns out you can actually say a lot more than you think you can. So that was really nice, and I also just found that while I was there I was learning so many new words, and I found words that I'd learned in high school come back to me. So that was really, really nice. And kind of about the last 10 days that I was in France, I felt like I was kind of been put to the test, sort of, because at that point, there was only this one other pilgrim that I was encountering for 10 days, and we always stayed at the same place, and we would often hike together for at least part of the day, usually not the entire day because our pacings were a little bit different, but we would walk together, we would eat together, we would go grocery shopping together. And this guy, he was like an older man, he didn't speak English really, so the only language that we had to communicate was French. So I really had to push myself a little to communicate with him, and I think in turn he also had to learn maybe to be a little bit more patient with someone that doesn't speak his language very well. But I feel in the end we actually did discuss quite in-depth things, even though my language was very much lacking. But I don't feel like my French is great at this point, but I do feel like confident that I can actually learn this, which is a really nice feeling. And that's one of the reasons I think why I was inspired to kind of really take my language learning seriously again this year. So I have made a list of a couple goals for different languages, and I've tried to make them not too intense because I want this to be about getting back into language learning and being more serious about it, but I don't want to push myself too much. I still want to take my mental health into account, and yeah, I just want to set some low goals that I feel are very manageable but will inspire me just by writing them down. They should inspire me to actually get something done. I think and my first goal is to learn some basic words and phrases in Czech because I'm going to the Polyglot Gathering later this year, and that's in the Czech Republic. Really excited about that because I've never been before, but I've wanted to go for a couple of years. So now I have the opportunity and I'm going there, and I'm not planning on learning too much Czech, but I just want to know basic things like hello, good morning, thank you, things like that. I just think it's always nice if you're traveling to know these basic phrases. So yeah, I want to pick those up again. I actually started Duolingo, Czech on Duolingo a couple of years ago for a camping trip with friends to the Czech Republic. But I forgot everything. At least the only word that I can remember is the word for castle, which is not super useful. But yeah, I just want to get back into Duolingo for Czech. And then for French, because I feel like in 2024 I really improved my French a little bit. I really want to keep that up and improve. And I only set myself one goal really, and that is to read a book in French because I feel like that is the most intimidating thing to me. I feel like, it's much easier with French to like pick up a textbook and do a chapter, but to like really read a book and understand it. I did actually read a comic last year, but that was a quite difficult one. I thought it'd be easier because it was a comic, but it was set in a high school, so they use a lot of colloquial language, and sometimes even Google Translate can translate it for me. So that was a little bit tricky, but I do hope for this year I will finish at least one French book, hopefully more, but at least one, and hopefully I'll also, get out my textbooks again, but the one goal, the specific goal that I'm setting is just to read one book. The same for German, because I also got excited about German again last year. But yeah, I have quite a few books in German, actually in French as well, so that's also one of the reasons why I want to read more in those languages. But I also set the goal for myself to read one book in German, hopefully more. I want to read at least one book. As Swedish is a little bit easier for me, I want to read a little bit more. I want to read at least 2 books in Swedish, but hopefully a lot more. I have also quite a lot of books in Swedish, and in Swedish I feel like my level, kind of same with German maybe when it comes to reading, but at least in Swedish my level is good enough to actually enjoy what I'm reading and not just feel like I'm struggling all the time. So I should make use of that and read more in Swedish. And I also want to watch more TV programs in Swedish. I do that sometimes, but I just forget about it a lot of the time, even though always when I do it I find it fun and it doesn't feel like I don't really feel like I have to push myself so much. So I want to do that a little bit more to the point where it becomes more of a habit. I think that's mainly the thing that I want to do. So I just wrote down to watch a Swedish show 10 times, and hopefully it'll be a lot more, but it's more that every time I look at my language goals it reminds me to do this thing. Yeah, and then I have 2 other goals for Swedish because that's kind of after English and Dutch, that's like my best language, so I really want to focus more on Swedish and improve. So I have 2 more goals, and one of those is to finally finish the Duolingo course for Swedish. I feel like I'm very close to finishing, so it would be really nice to get that done this year. And the other one is that I want to do 2 chapters from my textbook, my Swedish textbook, and hopefully again I would like to do a lot more, but I think setting myself the goal of doing 2 chapters will at least make me get out my books, because that's mostly been the thing that I just haven't picked up my Swedish textbook in a couple of years now. And I think the main reason is just because I found the topic of the first 2 chapters of this book that I'm working on just kind of boring. So I should just open it again and just go through it quickly, and I don't have to do every single exercise if it's boring. I can move on to the next chapter, but I want to do at least 2 chapters. And then I would really like to focus on German, Swedish and French this year, but I feel like, as always, that's going to be hard. I might dabble a little bit in Turkish or Faroese, that's always fun. So we'll see how it goes, but I want to focus most on German, French and Swedish. And I don't have any other specific goals for specific languages, but I do have 2 general goals, and one of those is to make a video in another language. It's probably going to be Swedish or French, but it could be any language. We'll see what happens. And then my last goal is to do something language related every single week of this year that isn't Duolingo, because I feel a lot of the time it's very easy to just do Duolingo and feel like I've been studying a language when Duolingo is fun, and I do think it's useful, but it's not. I think you should incorporate other things in your language learning, and I think I need to push myself to do that a little bit more. So I want to do that at least one time every week this year. So yeah, those were my language goals. I would love to hear your goals or what languages you're studying in the comments down below, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. Bye!